Right then, we talked about one topic where parents find it difficult to allow their children to pursue careers in, and we now move on to another, and that's art and architecture. Once again, in an age of technology and media, Muslim representation in this area is slightly lacking, and it's wonderful to see the genuinely beautiful work of architect and Quran reciter Zuhair Hussaini. Zuhair, welcome to the show. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you so much. Wa alaikum salam. How are you doing?
We're doing well. Thank you very much for coming on to the show. First off, how did you get into art?
Thank you for having me. I used to draw as a kid. So from the very beginning, I used to go to the majlis. I would have a drawing pad, maybe I was 6 or 7. While the majlis is going on, I'd be drawing the minbar, the microphone. This is literally how I started. Then as years went by, I would make these little art pieces with color pencils, go post it on this announcement board at the masjid. I just posted there, just for no reason. No one asked me to do it, but I wanted to do it. And slowly, I went from there to drawing cars, and eventually, here I am as an architect.
The art that you do, what art do you consider your work to be?
At this current time, you could consider architecture art. So from professional side, as my career, I do architecture. And then aside from that, I paint. I do mostly Islamic calligraphy. Um, it's more spiritual based art. I try to stick to faith-based illustration and sometimes technical illustrations.
Yeah. So when it comes to your role now, so fast forward, a few years, and you've worked with a couple of firms. I understand that you've conducted a few architecture projects at previous firms. What's the role like?
So, I've been out of school for 8 years, 7 years. After I finished school, I did my exams to become a licensed architect in New York State, which is something that every architect around the world goes for. You finish your education, then you take a bunch of exams. In my case, it was 7 exams to become licensed, where you can actually legally call yourself an architect. Because before that, you can't call yourself an architect. You're architectural designer or this designer, but legally you can't call yourself architect. So anyhow, that's done. I worked on the majority of the projects I worked on have been biotech labs, some pharmaceutical labs, and it's basically designing the amenity spaces within these typologies. So, once there's game rooms, there's a spiritual center, there's the cafeteria, the cool and fun zones within these spaces. And then this is something I was doing for the last few years, and currently I'm working on airports, which is something I wanted to do from high school, to work on airport projects, designing grand airports and terminals. So that's what I'm currently engaged in.
Fantastic stuff, honestly. So tell us, when it comes to an architecture project, what's the most interesting aspect about it? Like, do you have to draw graphs and all of that, and like 3D model objects?
Yeah, definitely. It depends what phase we're in. If it's concept design, you make all these concepts for how a building comes together, the different program that's required. That's mostly the fun part of it. Someone comes along, hey, we need this research center, or we need this, I don't know, anything. And it's like, okay, this is what the a client needs, and you're essentially solving a problem for them. And whether it's through models, model making, through physical or 3D, and bunch of sketching, depending on the budget, of course, because the budget is everything is tied back to money, and if depending on how that goes, it can either spend weeks and months working on, and that's basically the fun part of the project. Once that gets settled down, then it's like the not fun project, because you have to document all the design for to get it ready for construction. So it really depends on the project type and the client, honestly.
Okay. So moving, I guess, into uh, you, your passion for Quran recitation, and I've heard you in person reciting Quran. MashaAllah, you're very, very good at what you do. What is the link, do you
Very
think,
kind of you.
between what is the link you think between art and recitation of the Holy Quran? Because I believe that you're quite artistic in just by your nature, and Quran recitation is an art in itself. Where do you see the link?
I think, there's so many, for example, you go to any museum, you see a lot of mushaf of the Quran, historic, and that's something that drew me to calligraphy because what we have of Arabic calligraphy, I think a strong reason is the Quran. And I took on Quran recitation by chance. I was giving adhan, as a young kid, and one there was a funeral once, and I recited. And I think as the years have gone by, I've developed. I reached a fork where it's like, you just recite Quran for the sake of it, or, it's something, a passion that takes on more within you. And that's, literally the art of recitation is, how much time you commit to it, which is necessary for both art and recitation. The more time you dedicate towards it, the more you get from it. And one can be perceived as, it both benefits you both in this life and the hereafter, while the other one, the way I contextualize this, both can be used for that.
So, lastly, I think one a project that you worked on, like a side project, part of your passion, is obviously the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, and one of your projects circulated on social media it was quite popular. To date, was that your biggest project? And tell us a bit more about us. Actually, I'm going to ask the technician to play your video, and then we can talk about it in a second. So, technician, if you can play,
Sure.
we're just going to play the video now, and just tell us about the project as the video is playing.
Yeah, so this was my thesis project, the fifth year of architecture school. You're given the opportunity to work on anything you'd like, although that's not how it came to me. Our first prompt was affordable housing in New York City, and I had to convince my professor that I'd like to do something different. And I spent a week and a half trying to essentially convince him, like, hey, this is the problem. There used to be a mausoleum in an area called Baqi in Medina, present day in Medina, and I would like to propose a redesign of what this could potentially be one day. And I spent 9 months, 2 semesters working on this in school, and it was the best thing because I got to work on something that I love, which is architecture. At the same time, it's for Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. And it's like the perfect combination because it never felt like any other assignment felt like, I have to get this done for school. It wasn't always fun, but this, I spent every opportunity that I could, time-wise, to work on this, and I enjoyed every second. And since school, I even did other things with it. I presented this in numerous cities, throughout the U.S. There was a conference I went to in Germany where I presented this in Cologne. The last thing I did was I built a model, a scale model, 5 by 10 feet, which is currently sitting in Najaf. It's basically a wooden model for a association called Markaz Imam Hassan, which is
Hey.
yeah, it's the parent group is the Shrine Imam Hussein alayhi salam, but they do purely tabligh of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, and this is Ramadan of 2019. I went and built this, and it's still there. It was probably one of my most memorable trips to Iraq, and just a very great Ramadan because
I can see from the footage, Zuhair, that it reminds me a bit of Sayyidah Ma'sooma alayhi salam. It reminds me a bit of Mashhad. At the same time, there's
yeah,
remnants of Imam Hussein's shrine. There's a bit of modern, contemporary artwork, but also very
yes.
traditional. Talk us through that.
Yeah, I was trying to interpret Shi'i or Muslim architecture into a contemporary style. There's many things I did here, which I think it's been 7 years later, I look back, I'm like, I would be like, I wish I didn't do that. But there are plans, to eventually like redo this for my own sake. But I wanted to create, a modern interpretation of what we have because most of the architecture that we have today of Mausoleum architecture within, Syria, Iran, Iraq are very similar, and it's almost the same with subtle differences, whether it's a dome or the Varif design. So I wanted to create something different, something more that anyone can walk in there and understand what's going on, whether they're Muslim or not Muslim.
That honestly, that looks like a fun. So can this actually be used for, like, if they genuinely, and there was a chance, inshallah, in the near future, and they actually wanted to rebuild the Baqiya, they could use your dimension, they could use your artwork, they could use
Yeah,
your.
yeah. I mean, yeah, they can. Everything is realistic within dimensions. I mean, maybe there's things like I said I did 6 years ago, which I may change subtly, but that's just
Yeah.
you grow as a designer, and you constantly want to turn the design to something better. But otherwise, yeah, it can be used.
I'm mind blown, Zohair, because one day, inshallah, someone's gonna use your designs to rebuild Baqiya. How does that make you feel?
I don't have no words. I that's I think everything that I have achieved through this project, and even the concept, is purely through Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. Because I cannot even. People ask me, how'd you come up with this? I can't even think of it, because it's like one day it popped into my head, and right before I worked on this project, I went on my first ziyarah to Iraq, and it's something I earnestly asked, as I want to do this when I get back home. And if the tawfiq is there for it to come into fruition one day, then it's I have no words. I hope one day this is the little that I can offer, and towards Ahlul Bayt, and I hope I can do more in the future, inshallah. That's how I look at
And
it.
Zuhair Hussaini, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much for your
Thank you for
time.
having me. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you for having me.
That was architect and Quran reciter Zuhair Hussaini. Once again, many thanks for his time and his delightful inputs. Now,